There are many ways, like study of fossils, vestigial organs, homologous and analogous organs, and DNA analysis, by which evolutionary relationships between organisms can be proved. Fossils are the preserved remains of life forms that lived long time back. But how are they formed? Formation of fossils. An organism that lived long time back dies. It is buried before the remains are completely destroyed. Over time, layers of sediments build up and press down on the buried remains. Dissolved minerals transported by groundwater in the sediment fill tiny spaces in the bones. The combination of pressure, chemical reaction, and time eventually turn the sediments into rock and the bones into mineralized fossils. The fossils remain within the rock until uncovered through erosion or excavation. We can also find out how old a fossil is. The first method, that is, related method, it works on the principle that when we start finding fossils, the ones that are found closer to the surface are the more recent ones than the ones found deeper. Every living thing is made of carbon. Plants grab carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and use it to form complex organic molecules. Animals get their carbon by eating these plants. Most carbon atoms have 6 protons and 6 neutrons. We call this carbon-12. High up in the atmosphere, sometimes, cosmic rays hit nitrogen atoms. This creates carbon with 6 protons and 8 neutrons. We call this carbon-14. After one half-life, the animal will have about half the amount of carbon-14 it started with. After another half-life, it will have about a quarter. And after another half-life, it will have about an eighth. By measuring the ratio between carbon-14 and 12, we can measure how many thousands of years have passed. This way of determining the age of fossils is called radiometric dating. Look at the structure of these animals. A human, a cat, and a bat seem to have not much in common. But if we take a deeper look at their limbs, we find that most parts are common, like humerus, radius, ulna, carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges. These structures, which appear to have similar basic structures but perform different functions, are called homologous structures. Homologous structures usually have the same basic structure, same origin, have a common ancestor, perform different functions, and are an example of divergent evolution. However, some organisms like a penguin, a fish, and a dolphin have organs that perform similar functions, that is, swimming, but actually have a very different basic design. A penguin is a bird and has wings, a fish has fins, and a dolphin has flippers for swimming. Although these organs perform similar functions, they have different internal structures. Such structures that have similar functioning but have a different basic structure are called analogous organs. Analogous organs usually have different basic structures, different origins, but perform same function. They are also an example of convergent evolution and do not share common ancestors. Are you aware that humans do have a tail? Well, not exactly a tail, but they do have a tailbone, which is located at the far end of the spinal cord and is called cortex. In our ancestors, a tail may have served as an important organ for maintaining balance. Such organs which during the process of evolution have lost their functionality but are still there, are called vestigial organs. So more examples are the nictitating membrane in our eyes, which was maybe used by our ancestors for eye protection. Another example is the appendix located at the far end of the large intestine. This is also an organ that serves no specific purpose in digestion. DNA analysis. For example, if we observe the DNA of a human and a chimpanzee, then the similarity in their DNA would be much more than the comparison of a human and a cat. These molecular studies suggest that the more characteristics or traits organisms have in common, the closer will be their recent ancestor. Long before Darwin and Wallace, farmers and breeders were using the idea of selection to cause major changes in the features of their plants and animals over the course of decades. Farmers and breeders allowed only the plants and animals with desirable characteristics to reproduce, causing the evolution of farm stock. As shown below, farmers have cultivated numerous popular crops like cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, kale, and kohlrabi from wild mustard by artificially selecting for certain attributes.